Hello, folks. Welcome to Lads Hour, the best time of the Friday afternoon. I'm joined by Luca, Harry, and Leo, and we are going to be talking about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2002. Now, I want to preface this by saying I was an adult when these things came out, right? And I remember, as you two probably won't remember, but you'll remember, the kind of reception that this kind of film got. Now, we'll go through some of the reviews of the time, but basically it wasn't great. Now, it's one of those films where it did fairly well, the audience liked it, but the response from the, not just the critic sphere, but just the kind of, the sort of people who think they're better than everyone else sphere is, it was crap, right? And in its day, when you were comparing it to what had come before, it didn't seem that great. But actually, now that we're comparing it to what's come after, it's a bloody masterpiece, actually.
I said this when we were talking in the office before, but I still think that this is a cut above most, if not all, of the superhero films that had come out prior to it. You can say for the early Reeves Superman films and the Tim Burton Batman films as well, but then by the time you got to the mid-90s,
and remember the Batmans that came out after the first couple of Tim Burton Batmans.
And I mean, before this, you had in 2000 the first X-Men film, which is okay. It's not anywhere near as good as the second one, but this for me is like head and shoulders above basically all of those films.
Starts with a bang.
Yeah. But it was way better than all of those films, basically. And the thing is, by the end of the 90s, superhero films had really degraded in not just the quality, but reputation as well. I mean, you remember Batman and Robin, right?
Well, we've already covered it on here, so I
the Nietzschean
remember.
Masterpiece.
Yeah, the Nietzschean masterpiece. Well, in its time, it wasn't understood to be quite as Nietzschean as we understand it to be now, and it was just laughed at, and everyone thought it was shit. So Spider-Man 1, though it didn't get a very good reception from the critics, it was still clearly way better than the alternatives. In fact,
also, I think this was the start of the era of critics being like just really wanky and like it's.
Well, I don't know. They've always been a bit wanky.
You can sort of tell when a film is good and worth watching is if it gets 1 star in the Guardian. If it's good, it'll get 1 star in the Guardian. If it's bad, it'll get 5 stars. I was in when I had a proper job. We had a thing with cinema clubs, so we'd go to the cinema once a month. And so we'd always go and see something that was like The Tree of Life or that one, some Lars von Trier thing about a big planet that's going to crash into the Earth.
Right.
I think it had Kirsten Dunst in it as well, funnily enough. But Melancholia.
That's the one where she gets her tits out.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I mean, but you can see tits anywhere now, so it's not like
not even exciting
anymore. As a kid,
you can't
but they're Kirsten Dunst tits.
And just anywhere, though.
You can just get Photoshop.
See that face.
I suppose, a little bit. Yeah.
All the sort of really top-rated artsy films were just awful, awful. Unlike art house films can be good. Look at A Taste of Cherry, something like that. Just amazing. If it's an Iranian film, but hardly any dialogue in it.
Hardly any mullahs in it.
Mullah log, and it's about this guy. It's about this guy who's just driving around Iran, trying to find somebody who's willing to bury him once he's killed himself. He just wants to kill himself. So it doesn't sound like the most fun way to spend. It's a great film.
I can imagine. I can picture that being a good film.
I'm intrigued.
You talk about The Guardian. There was that film that came out a few years ago with Emma Stone in it. What was it called? Like Little Things.
Yeah.
Where it's the brain of a child, like a little baby brain, put in the body of a dead woman, and immediately goes off and has sex with loads of people. Really fucked up. I bet The Guardian gave that 5 stars.
Well, they saw themselves reflected in it.
Yeah, they're like, this reflects all of my major interests.
Yeah.
That's awful. I've never even heard of this.
And it was made by a Greek, if I remember.
Oh, really?
Stelios has a lot to answer for.
And it was rubbish as well. It wasn't even like...
It wasn't even good.
It wasn't even an entertaining...
Poor Things, that was the name of the film.
That was I'm seeing this a lot. The films that... Because it came out on Netflix, or it was certainly, it was one of the big streaming services had it. They got so much money that people get the money, and it's almost like they don't care about making a good thing, because they don't need to make a good thing, because they've got all this money from Netflix, and they know that Netflix is going to give them more money. So much stuff.
Netflix hearing pedo script, they're going to give 2 thumbs up straight away.
Cuties too, yes please.
Yeah.
So much stuff so much stuff in the streaming services. Like Amazon have got this film coming out about a fat black female president, and G20, I think it's called.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh man, it looks like a spoof. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite looking forward to watching it now you've said it like that. Anyway, getting back to Spider-Man. So we'll go through some of the reviews at the time just before we get into the film, because I think these are really an interesting sort of cross-section of where the culture was at the time. I can see this is from 2002, right? And the thing is, they've got a thing here.
IGN as well.
Yeah, it's IGN, right? It's not that Spider-Man is a bad film. It's just not a good film, right? I'd almost have liked it better if it were awful instead of showing so much unfulfilled promise. This is about as good as it gets, though. And so I actually think this is a really unfair description, because one of the things that became obvious about the film as I was rewatching, because it's been a few years since I watched it, is the unsubtlety with which the film addresses the relationships in it. Right? There's a part where Harry is going to kiss Mary Jane. She just turns her head away. It's like, oh, come on, it's
all over the top, exaggerated, obvious,
right?
Which is what you kind of want from a film like
this.
Especially directed by Sam Raimi,
but not in an ironic way, in a sincere way. It wears it on its chest.
It's highly sincere.
Yeah, it's entirely sincere. So the there's not much that's actually hidden, but the thing is, the actual story is remarkably complex, and the relationships actually all interweave in quite a sophisticated way. So I can see why, as just a stylistic choice, they're like, okay, look, we're not going to try and layer the subtleties of who loves who and who is, because there's just too much going on. There are a lot of moving parts, and you've got to remember it all to actually understand the story. Because otherwise, like, the beginning of Spider-Man 2 doesn't make any sense. If you don't, we'll get into spoiler alerts.
The son of the baddie or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Who doesn't know that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but hates Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is his best friend.
Right.
If this is all done through layers of subtlety and nuance, you're going to forget really important plot's critical points.
Yeah.
However, it's a lot nicer than the cape shit that we get these days, where it's not just, well, make sure you've watched the last film. It's make sure you've watched the last film, the tie-in television series, the team-up film, this tie-in comic book that we wrote for it as well,
also,
and played the mobile game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody has time for that shit. It's nice to go back to a trilogy where it's just, it's 3 films, done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. So, but it's also, like I said, it is actually very complex. So, like, one of the criticisms is it's just it's too on the sleeve. But it's like, yeah, but it needs to be, because lots of things follow on, and if you actually want to understand it, you need to have seen it.
Also helps a younger audience follow along with it as well.
It does, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was 6 when this came out.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
And it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, not expecting some sort of...
I'm glad that as a 6-year-old, these kinds of quality films were coming out, because I despair for what the children are getting these days.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah. Like I don't bother taking my kids to watch Marvel films or something. It's not interested.
No.
Because they're crap. But anyway, again, 23 years old, Spider-Man 3
nice high-res picture. Fucking hell.
Look, you don't understand the early internet, right?
Oh, no, I remember the early internet.
But yeah, so they're basically like, yeah, it's okay. It wasn't as good as it should have been. And I'm like, well, I think it was actually as good as it should have been, actually. Again,
Parker's Change is a mile away from Jeff Goldblum or Vincent Price in The Fly and 100 miles from Kafka. Why are you bringing these comparisons into it?
But that's
It's for kids.
But that's the point, though. Think of the context in which this film came out compared to the context of now, right? So all throughout the 20th century, we had literally legendary directors making legendary films. Like, there were just like loads of them, but like, Steven Spielberg, what's the guy who did Aliens? James Cameron, Ridley Scott. You've got like all of these, like, these directors in 500 years are going to be like Milton is now, right? These are the people who are creating what is the Western canon in movies for forever, basically. And so, like, being compared, this wasn't Kafka. It's like, I bet it bloody wasn't. It was called Spider-Man.
No, it's Raimi, and he belongs up there with the greats.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well, though, because before this, like, Sam Raimi was just some random horror director, right? And it's like, okay, we're going to give you Spider-Man. This is just nothing. And he makes something really good out of it.
So Sam Raimi did stuff like The Evil Dead.
Yeah, I love The Evil Dead, don't get me wrong. But, like...
And you can see where the style starts to come into it in those films. Evil Dead 2, where he takes the premise from the first one, expands upon it, and you get a lot of comedy in it. And then Army of Darkness. There's actual Looney Tunes wacky scenes in Army of Darkness. And that style was kind of perfect for films like this. And I like that, unlike today where they'll take niche directors who've done one film and bring him into the studio system, hamper him with loads of editorial necessities, and then ruin his career by being way too heavy-handed with the oversight. They went, this guy's got style, this guy's got a track record, let's give him the film and just let him run with it. I'm sure there was plenty of editorializing, but the fact that it's Sam Raimi still comes through. And it's the same where we were talking about Peter Jackson as well. Peter Jackson, before Lord of the Rings, was like some Kiwi horror director who liked making ridiculously gory films.
Yeah, his first film, was it Brain Dead or Bad Taste?
Yeah, one of them.
His first film, it was like completely homemade, and it took him like 13 years to make. And you can see in the film, all the special effects. It's a great film. All the special effects are homemade, and even like the aliens' heads are kind of square because the latex had to be baked in his mum's oven. It had to fit in the oven. It's so mad.
But that's passion.
Yeah.
That's just you've got a vision and you're making it.
Yeah, and then they go, you want to adapt this otherwise unadaptable book series? Okay, here's millions and millions of dollars, and we're going to let you do your own thing with it, because there are sequences in the Lord of the Rings films where you can feel that horror pedigree that he comes from. Some of the stuff in Fellowship where there's the Nazgul riding after them, the second film with Shelob, and it's nice that they had that freedom back then before the studios had really strangled them like today.
And as it will go on to do with Raimi by the time of Spider-Man 3. In its own way, even in its own. Yeah.
Even though Spider-Man 3 still, we'll get when we get to it, still has its moments. Yeah, definitely does.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is downhill after 2, though. 2 is just a spectacular film.
2's peak.
Its own right. But yeah, anyway, so you've got like the deeply pretentious Guardian reviews, but even that gives it 3 out of 5. Right? And you'd be like, well, it's not Kafka, is it? It's not The Fly. It's like, no, it's not, of course, The Fly. And it's not Franz Kafka. But like even then, it's still pretty good, and it's still very watchable, because at no point in the film is it boring or even like confusing. And in fact, what I found really interesting, I was reading the Roger Ebert review of it, right? Yeah, no, he gives it 2.5 out of 4. Which, why out of 4? Like, okay, why
it's
4?
A dumb number.
Ebert is one of my least favourite, most overrated film reviewers ever.
100%. I'd never had any time for him, right? But what's interesting is that his critique is about the action in the film. He's like, the action's stupid, and gets in the way of the actual relationships. Where's the there's a particular bit there. The origin story is well told. The characters will not disappoint anyone who values the original comic books. It's the action scenes that things fall apart. Consider the scene where Spider-Man blah, blah, blah. But that's a really interesting take on it, actually. And actually shows you the richness of the development of the characters throughout the story, because the story is basically entirely character focused, and it's all about the relationships they cultivate with one another, and actually becomes a very deep and layered experience throughout the series of movies, not just this one. And the fact that it commits so well to them in the subsequent movies is actually really impressive for what it is.
Sorry, I've just noticed this paragraph at the bottom of the screen here. I have one question about the Peter Parker character. Does the movie go too far with his extreme social paralysis? Peter tells Mary Jane he just wants to be friends. Only a friend, she repeats. That's all I have to give, he says. How so? Impotent? Question mark. Spidey Spence has skewed his sexual instincts, afraid his hands will get stuck.
No,
Sorry.
He's making a sacrifice.
I know. Anyone who watches the film should be able to know why.
This is why I
don't like him either. I don't like him either.
This is almost a willful misunderstanding.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.